Rahubat Yasar. Anuki Reyetet Nafartet Sawatet Atum Reye.
Rahubat Yasar, Renani Kawan Nabab Ma'at Reye Hatep. And we're both student teachers of the master teacher Pa Nabab Yano, also known as Jananan, or to some Dr. Malachi Z.K. York.
Nakuk Atoy Tauhat. Lahe Ayuh Salafu. Lahe Rasul Ya Nanan. Pa Munbab Pa Muklas. Wu Nazor or Salel Panen Zamut Wu Wakut. Pa Mashfe Bi Sahu Chaos At. Anhu Yake Wahuban Nun. Pa Saduk Anun Ater. Pa Nwap Bi Wahub Nun. Wu Nawab. Jamud Sahu Chaos Anun Nun Tarok. Saleo Anok Wu Hayu Anhu Hayas. Nazala Lehi Nun Munin Pa Kawak Razak. Jasad Bu Damam Jawif Katir O Munin. Mazak Jawif Malal Lehe Panan Kawak. Taha Anun Tanak. A prayer from our own people, the replacements of all who failed. As each of their books taught that if they failed, a new people would be raised to Nawup replace them. You, my children, are Pa Nawupt, the replacement. Nawup replacing those who live by faith and beliefs of the religion of the Adamite race in their books, doctrines, teaching of their own history. Yet now that I have come with Wu Nuap, and they became Pa Wawapa, the ones who replace the others, it was written and it is. And, O gossiping ones of the past before the year 2000 AD, the expiration of all the Bible and Quranic teachings, as well as the end of the 6,000 years of the Adamite domination and rule by their own legends, fictions, and false belief. You who still follow them and make the claim to be counted among the knowing, know this: you have been deceived by the Kakasu, whites, Caucasoids, and Arabu, reds, Arab, and their religion beliefs. Do not be arrogant and speak, preach, and teach much about that which you are not knowledgeable. You who have Hatun decided to live a lie, Atun decide to now live that truth. You are of the original race of people. Act as if you have some sense. The Jews, Christians, and Muslims does not grasp the essence of which, or those who were planned on this planet long before their Adam and Eve, by whichever their names. Neither in turn does those who grafted and made them grasp the essence of that which, or those who are grown divine in natural nature. Mankind can never grasp the natural nature of the original African man. The unnatural natured human beast is just that, a heathen and a beast. Nor does this human beast understand our true divine natural nature thoroughly. Only what they breed of us as hybrids, neutrinoids, who as mulattoes chase to join on the Tananu Dragonians. We Panatharu have designed a genetic system, a scientific system of natural rules of nature, and they are on the outside of the natural rule. A set of genetic principles to each creature of these species and entities to which all must submit. Of your 24,000 chromosomes in your genomes, you are always using 24% of the other 76% is jumping DNA and satellite DNA and are interfacing with the morphic field. So in fact are active responding to alterations in your state of consciousness. Your satellite DNA's ability to expand the number of repeating sequences means an increase in the outformation to your information earning capacity of DNA. As a fractal antenna, DNA interacts with the etheric or space, time, and vacuum terms, which are synonymous in this context with your zero time point of 0 point energy, which interacts with your consciousness. So each race or species is in the actual fact affected by their environment. Everything they're taught, believe, accept it. Everything they drink, eat, breathe in. All is affecting your state of mind and being, your 24,000 genomes, and the 24% of them you use at all times.
Okay, this is a study from Panabab Yanun called The Migration Out of Africa, Aliens, Extraterrestrial Visits, and Gene Mixing. This is traced by the male Y chromosome marking only, which does not mix or change like the female X chromosome over time. The sacred masculine. It is how all humanoids migrated, in which aliens used their DNA to breed hybrid races from the original Sans people of South Africa, and millions of years ago on to thousands of years ago on up until now. Positive blood types were originally Negroids, and negative blood types were originally Caucasoids. From the aliens who mixed in, the interruption is when those who moved out of Africa 400,000 years ago to Arabia, then 350,000 years ago on to Asia. Aliens were behind all of this, thought to be God. Then from Central Asia upward to Europe, 40,000 years ago, to meet their aliens of Pleiadian star system in Scandinavia. All these took place while they were still Melanite, before mixing with the Pleiadians to become Nordic seeds of Europe. Once the extraterrestrial alien did genetic breeding and crossbreeding, these are the beings they bred with. Pleiadians, North Europe, Nordic. Andromedas, Asians, Asia. Syrians, West Africa, Negroids. Orionians, East Africa, Negroids. Anunnaki, Mesopotamia, Middle Eastern. Riskians, Antarctica, South Africa. Draconians, South Europe, Caucasoids. The crossbreeding is man today, the Adamite hybrid of what's man's kind. Humankind was not made until much, much, much later. In fact, the year 3761 BC, according to the calendar of Nippur, the Sumerian, which became the Hebrew Chaldean calendar used today, and now by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Each will openly claim a first man, Adam, which means ruddy, reddish, blush, fair skin, pink skin. All agree 4000 BC, which is 6,000 years back from the year 2000 AD. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 through 17. Luke chapter 3, verse 23 through 38. Quran chapter 3, verse 33. The exact same race of people, fair skin, Genesis chapter 5, verse 1. Only 6,000 years ago, being crossed humanoid, mixed simian, canine, porcine. How do I know? I was there, which is here, when the word was spoken. Psalms 82, verse 1 through 8. And you see us, our, we, in the Hebrew of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, plural, Elohim, gods, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And Elohim, gods, said, let us make Adam, man, in our image, after our likeness. Elohim, the Anunnaki, gods. These gods or extraterrestrials were Anunnaki, shapeshifters, able to transfigurate. Pleiadians, transparent, pale. Pale fur, pale skin, and pale eyes. Aldebaranians, tall, Nordic humanoids. Draconians, Arconians, reptilians. And you see these alien extraterrestrial deities, gods, and the his, own, him, a single God. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So Elohim, gods, created Adam, man, in his own image. In the image of Elohim, God created he them. Adam on the month of Tammuz, in the 6th day of the year of 3761 BC. Zakar, male, and Nekeba, female, created he them. El, which is Enki, a god. So one of the Elohim as a El became Yahweh, Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. He was chosen to breed with his own DNA, this new hybrid seed called Adamites, born of a female. Job chapter 14, verse 1. Adam, man, that is born of a female, Isha, is a few days, Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. That was to be 120 years only, and is full of trouble. John chapter 8, verse 44. Unlike the gods who made them, they tweaked their telomeres so that they would only live for 120 years. This changed with sexual contact with gods and female creation. So unlike the Lord God Yahweh, Elohim, who made him, Elohim of the Elo, Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. These gods lived much longer depending on from which star system and planet they came from, such as Psalms chapter 90, verse 4, 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, Quran chapter 32, verse 5, 1,000 years. This last breed was crossbred with simian, tailed monkeys, baboon, canine, wolf dogs, porcine, pigs, hogs, humanoids, human, sand people, as well as the DNA of the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians. This was done after the birth of Adam, originally called Adapa, and Eve, Hawa, originally called Titi, and was perfected by the time of Noah, Utnapishtim, Ziusudra. Genesis chapter 6, verse 9. After the sons of God raped the daughters of Adamites, the Enosites, Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 through 5. The new breed of Noah was no longer in the image of the gods. They were in the image of man, or man's kind. Genesis chapter 5, verse 3. Adam's son, Seth, sons, Enos. Genesis chapter 5, verse 6. This is how it happened. Believe it or not, truth is truth. Facts are facts. Don't believe me, check it all out. And it's a chart that Panabab created. The brother's about to put it on the screen so for everybody to see. It's pretty much a chart showing how the different races came about and what extraterrestrials came and mixed with who. Okay, with that being said, is there any questions, comments, cuss words, rereads?
Tower hat.
And Atafu, but you understand what he's saying, right? As far as he's pretty much explaining that these extraterrestrial beings came because at the time the Sans people were the only people on the planet because they were the first people on the planet.
Sure.
So these extraterrestrials like the Pleiadians, Draconians, Aldebarans came down to this planet and started mixing in with the Sans people.
Okay.
And he was explaining that's what it's talking about in all of these verses, like Psalms 90 verse 4, 2 Peter's, all of those different verses, and he's showing the different animals that they use, like the simian or the tailed monkeys, which is a baboon, canine, wolf dogs, porcine, the pig, hog, and the humanoids, human sand people.
All right. Up to it. Tower has
And Tatafu.
the part where he talks about the Riskians, bred those people in South Africa and Antarctica.
Sure.
So who's the people in Antarctica? Now we know the South African are Negroids. Antarctica, what breed or what species?
Panabab was explaining, actually these people, because he's talking about before the land broke apart, it was all one landmass. So when it was all one landmass, like he said before, he explained that they did this. If you look into the graph right there, he explains to the side that the Riskians came down in the area that we now call Antarctica today and set up what was called Nuapia back then. And that was before the ice age and Antarctica froze over. So he's explaining that back then when the Natharu came down, it was all one landmass, and the Natharu set up Nuapia in what's called Antarctica today. And once it's separated, part is now called Antarctica and the other part is South Africa. But those are all still the Sans people. Did that answer your question? All right. Any other questions?
Robert, I was just wondering, what was the aliens' blood type? So ours were, the Negroids was positive and Caucasus was negative. What were their blood types?
The extraterrestrials? You said the aliens that came?
because of the aliens, we had positive blood, the Negroids, and the Caucasoons had negative blood. So I was wondering, what were the aliens' blood type? Or did they have a blood type?
As far as what their alien's blood type was, I don't know. I can't say exactly which one of these aliens' blood type was what. I know he's explaining it here is that what happened is these extraterrestrials, some were the Natharu and some were the Pleiadians, Draconians, Aldebarans, and different things like that. And he was explaining that the Natharu mixed in with these Sans people, therefore giving them the positive blood type. So when you see both B positive, O positive, and different things like that, those were the original blood types of us as African people. When those beings, like he was explaining here, that before they became the Nordic race or the blonde hair, blue eyes that we see today, these beings had melanin, or they were melanite. And he was explaining that when they went to Scandinavia to meet with these Pleiadians or mix in with these Pleiadians, they created that Nordic blonde hair, blue eye race that we see today, or that we seen years ago. And he was explaining that when that happened, they inherited that negative blood type, and their original blood type was Rh negative. And he was explaining that they got that blood type from these Pleiadian beings. We got the positive blood type from the Natharu. But what their blood, these different extraterrestrial blood type is, I can't say exactly. Any other questions?
Wu-Sabat.
Wu-Sabat.
I have a question from the bill that Paz Maltat, the first part she read. It's a couple of lines before of the 24,000 genomes, but I think it's the first thing you said about the Y chromosome. If you can reread that, please.
Okay, pretty much what he's saying is that, because if you do your research on the Y chromosome, he's explaining that the Y chromosome, just like how the females have the mitochondrial DNA, which stays the same and is passed down from mother to child and it never changes, the men, the Y chromosome is equivalent to the female's mitochondrial DNA, because the Y chromosome, if you do your research on the Y chromosome, you'll find out that the Y chromosome doesn't change. It doesn't merge. If you look at the X chromosome, one thing that scientists acknowledge is that the X chromosome mixes and fuses with other X chromosomes. The Y chromosome doesn't do that. It stays the same from beginning to end. And another thing about the Y chromosome is that it never dies off, because the Y chromosome is the only chromosome with the ability to heal itself. And that's one of the sciences behind the Y chromosome that they're actually studying right now, is how is it that this Y chromosome can heal itself when all other chromosomes, the X chromosomes, if you look at the X chromosome, the X chromosomes use other X chromosomes to regenerate itself. The Y chromosome is the only chromosome that actually can heal itself without the use of other chromosomes. And this is what he's explaining right here, is that because it has those abilities, it never changes or dies off. And the reason it never changes is because it never fuses or mixes with other chromosomes. Okay, so I had a question right there. But did I answer your question? That's what I thought for.
So with that said, does that mean that a male's lineage can be traced through that Y chromosome like they do with the mitochondria DNA?
Tua, that's what he's explaining right here, is he's showing you, and that's why he's bringing Noah and all of these different people from the Bible. He's showing that their lineage they can be traced back to these extraterrestrial beings like the Pleiadians and the Natharu, the Orionians, by way of that Y chromosome. Because when these beings came down, they altered. You got to remember, they altered. Like I said, the sons of God came down and had the sex with the daughters of men. He was explaining that these sons of God were the Natharu. Some of them were the Pleiadians. Some of them were Draconians. And they came down and took the genetics of the daughters of men, which were the Sans people at that time, and altered their genetics. And in them doing that, you had the Y chromosome came about. And he's explaining that Y chromosome, because of the ability of that Y chromosome to heal itself, and because it never fuses, you can trace the Y chromosome all the way back to where it came from. The same way with the female's mitochondrial DNA. The female mitochondrial DNA stays the same in that it holds all the information from the first person on the planet all the way to now. And that's how they can trace the female's mitochondrial DNA all the way back to the first person on the planet. Did that answer your question? Any other questions, comments, rereads? Sis in the back.
Wu-Sabat.
Wu-Sabat.
concerning the blood types. You said that the Sans people or when the Riskians mixed with the San people, we inherited the O positive blood, right?
Sure.
That means that the San people were also of A positive blood. Was it A positive?
What he's explaining is that the Riskians, not only when they mixed them, but the Riskians is where the Sans people came from. If you look at the chart right there, he's showing that the Riskians came down and placed these Sans people in the waters near Antarctica and South Africa, and that they grew out of the waters, and that the Natharu gave these Sans people the positive blood, not just O positive, but any B positive, any positive. When you see positive, that was the blood type of the Natharu. The negative was the blood type of the Pleiadians or the Anunnaki or the Caucasoids. And Tathafu.
Rahubat.
Rahubat.
Okay, so does it mean that information has changed? Because in the past we were taught that the Riskians had O blood type, universal donor, and that the positive on the blood type indicated the rhesus monkey antigen. So did that change?
You said the positive.
The positive blood type, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't that indicate that you have the antigen, the RH factor?
Of the RH factor, hold on 1 second. Let me see, because you're referring to this area where he says positive blood types were originally Negroids and negative blood types were originally Caucasoids from the aliens.
What? Say that again. I'm sorry.
This is what you asked me about. He says positive blood types were originally Negroids and negative blood types were originally Caucasoids.
Yeah, that's the confusion. Because are you trying to, is the Riskians mixed with monkeys? Because from my understanding, that positive indicates the mixture with the rhesus monkey. I'm confused about.
Well, like I was explaining earlier, the extraterrestrials in themselves, I can't speak on what blood type they have. Right here, he's explaining once they came to the planet, the beings that they created them with this positive blood type. Once these beings that they created, not saying that they had positive blood type or O positive or whatever, he's explaining that once they came here to this planet, they created these beings with that positive blood type. And these beings had that positive blood type until other beings or extraterrestrials came down and introduced the negative blood type to them, the RH negative and different things like that.
It's still a little confusing, but I'll research it. Tallahassee.
Oh, okay.
You said in there that the humankind came much, much later, which that is referring to those, the Adamu and
Sure.
when they were, their 6,000 year creation and all of that, right?
Sure.
So the other people that were created by these different breedings from the extraterrestrials, they are humanoid or demigods or what? And you had other beings that were created through that list of or is their genealogy in with that 37 BC? Is that where that started with the Nordic and all of them different people that you named? That's what I'm trying to, because in the doctrine you have different names for the different species of beings, like, humankind, man's kind, humanoid, and then the demigods, that Baba talk about. I'm trying to get an understanding of who's who and what, makes each one different. What's the differentiation between them? You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Now, what you're asking is you're trying to figure out exactly what is humankind, which is mankind, and which is... And I understand what you're asking. Exactly which one is which, I'm not exactly sure. I know he does speak about it, and but off the top of the head exactly which one is which. I'm not exactly sure right now.
Time span, if that was pointing out, you know, the difference in
Sure.
the species, because he definitely say humankind was much, much later than
Sure.
what was bred during that time, that 40,000 year period.
All right. So we appreciate everybody coming out to hear the Outformation class. Everybody get home safe. Wadu.